We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey.
Today's episode is going to be really interesting. You and I have actually done a little research on this one, right? And so today it's on learned helplessness.
Yeah,
I don't know. I had to look at my paper, but other than I'm really tired.
that's a good enough
But
reason.
yeah, didn't sleep last night. So yeah, learned helplessness
And we don't feel
and
helpless, so we show up even if we didn't sleep.
yeah. If you see me, closing my eyes and beginning to snore, just
That's fine. I'm just gonna keep
there.
talking,
Yeah, just keep talking.
Yeah.
That's all.
You know how like Brene Brown, she was talking about how in her relationship they're like when they come home, they're telling us what percentage they are at. One is
Oh
at
yeah.
like you might be at 20. I'm like, okay, I got you. I got the rest 80.
Yes. Yeah. I know. I heard her say that recently. I was like, that's really good. And that, without even thinking about that is what Larry and I do. Is
Yeah.
it's not even it's just like, oh, what you got going on? Okay. Well, I'll cover this and you cover that.
Yep, exactly. So
Yeah.
from your research, what is maybe we can start with what is learned helplessness? Like what
What's
is
learned helplessness? Because there's a lot of people that don't know what that is, and my husband was one of them. He says, I've never heard of that. So I got a really good explanation here of what it is. I looked it up. So learned helplessness is a psychological phenomenon where individuals develop a sense of powerlessness and passivity after repeatedly experiencing situations where they have no control or influence over outcomes. And it says, in learned helplessness, individuals may come to believe that their actions are futile and that they are unable to change or improve their circumstances, even when opportunities for change exist. This belief can lead to feelings of depression, anxiety, and decreased motivation to attempt to change or improve their situation, even when such efforts could be effective. Learned helplessness can manifest in various aspects of life, including relationships, work, and personal goals. It can have significant implications for mental health and well-being, as well as for how individuals approach challenges and setbacks in their life. I thought that was a really good overall encompassing definition of learned
in
helplessness.
summary, it can literally affect every area of life.
It really, because it's the way you're perceiving everything, right? You're perceiving it in this negative way. And I, when I first heard about this, I was like, I looked back and I had that too. And it's just it is a very helpless place. And you can't see any other way out other than what you're seeing, which for me was a wall. I think I've talked about that before. I just saw a wall. But and it is,
I have written down like you kind of feel stuck or trapped.
yeah, you feel stuck. Yeah, you definitely feel stuck or trapped. You can't see a way out. You can't see anything else. Your mind isn't even open to it. It's like your mind just focuses on that one thing and it won't let up. And so, and it is from repeated things happening over and over that just reinforce that belief, which is what it is.
I wonder how many times that experience had to happen for you to learn it, because
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's
because like I think even like in my I probably can't come up now with specific example, but there might have been experiences where, okay, good example might be your story of you were said that nobody likes you. It happened once,
right,
but
right.
then
It
you
became a
now have these
belief.
glasses.
It became a belief. And
It's
then
like
that's how I
a
saw
new
everything.
filter.
Correct. Right. That's a great example because that's exactly what happened. When that was told to me, it became a belief. It became a pair of glasses. And that's how I saw everything. That's how I perceived everything, is that nobody likes me. So I went into it, and that's, of course, very negative. So every situation, especially with my relationships, weren't always good because I went into it with, they don't like me anyway.
Yeah. And in
And there's
that
nothing I can
case,
do to make them like me, even though I tried.
in that case, you might have had this unhealthy belief that God created, and now through that belief you're now starting to kind of look for that proof of why
Yeah,
you can't do anything about it. Because like, did you try to do anything about changing it?
I did. I became a people pleaser, which was even worse.
Yeah, but
That's what that was
I don't
that
think it's
that
changing it. I don't think it's changing it. Oh,
what
actually
do
it
you mean?
is, because you try to get liked.
I tried to get liked, yeah.
Yeah.
And I tried to do things so that people would like me.
Okay, in that
Yes.
case, what if learned helplessness is that you don't even try that?
Well, that's what ends up happening with learned helplessness is you finally just don't even try anymore. You do get it when it was talking about the motivation, you do get to that point. You get to the point where you don't even want to try anymore. And I'll tell you, one kind of similar in my life is one of the things my brother used to do is he used to pull me into, oh, hey, let's like for instance, I don't know, play a game or something. And he knew, he always won. It could even be something stupid like arm wrestling, right? And I'm looking at him like, you're bigger than me, you're gonna win. You're gonna win every time. No, no, no. Come on, just try, just try. And he would talk me into it. And then of course I would lose. And so that happened enough times that I'm just not competitive with other people. I never have been. I don't have any desire at all to be competitive with people. I'm competitive within myself. I compete against myself. But, that made me fear competition with others because,
Yep.
oh, well, I'm going to lose anyway, so I'm not even going to try.
I was exactly the same. And this is actually one thing that I'm still learning or looking for ways to learn and improve that competitiveness, specifically for the reason that, well, one is I was always convinced that it's a bad thing to be competitive. Let's start there. Like
Oh,
I was convinced that it's a bad thing and it's all about ego and it's all about like kind of,
ah,
like proving that I'm better
right.
and stuff like that. Um, so that was the first thing. But then I got explained by a really smart person, or more so wise. That's what I believe more in. That in competitive environments, that's where you actually, the person that you compete with or the team or whatever, you actually bring the best out of each other. You
Mm-hmm.
help each other to bring the best out of each other because you're trying to beat or win the other person. And I was like, whoa, first of all, I have
Oh my
never,
gosh, that is such a mind changer.
yeah,
To
I
go into it
remember,
with that mindset is
I
just
still
awesome.
remember where I was and where, when he explained it to me, I was like, whoa. Because then what happens? You actually can't lose
Right.
because you still do your best unless you have learned that you can't do your best or there's no point, then you don't even try, which is a big
Right.
part of learned helplessness that I had also written down, is that you get to a place which is, it's actually like really painful place to be, because a lot of times we're not even aware of it. You get to a place where you don't even try. Like if you think about it, as long as you
Mhm.
keep trying, even if you might not give your best in that attempt when you're trying, which also
Right.
probably is partly linked to learned helplessness, because you believe
Mhm.
that you can't really get results, so you might put in less effort or less work. But if you don't even try anymore, it's like a dead sentence. You literally, you just
Mhm.
won't be doing anything. And when it comes to change, when it comes to improvement, you have to do something. You have to do some, you have to take some kind of actions. Um, otherwise, like really nothing changes or things start to get worse. Usually it's actually they get worse.
Yeah.
So it's something that yeah, like that competitiveness, that actually, now that I'm talking about that example, I think one thing that can help with uh, changing that learned helplessness is, even because like there's certain kind of view or perspective that we create towards the world with that learned helplessness or that certain area. Let's
Mhm.
say with, even like in my case, like, or even like your case, competing. But then when you talk to somebody who shows you completely different reality or different perspective, you're like, whoa, I haven't even thought about it before. So now you give
Mhm.
space to question whether the way you were looking at things or seeing things, whether
Mhm.
it's actually true. So it's actually beneficial to either be around people or have conversations with people who have, well, big one for me also was about eating. Talking
Mm.
to somebody who's like, it's just a few. I just use it for fuel. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like I shared with you years ago, somebody said to me, if you want to be skinny, which that's not what my goal is, but this is what they said. If you want to be skinny, watch a skinny person eat.
yep.
And you know what? That clearly it's still stuck with me. And it's just more like it's more, I changed the word skinny to healthy. You see, watch a healthy person eat.
And same thing in your marriage.
Right. Hmm.
Watch how a healthy person deal with conflicts.
Conflict. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or like
Hmm.
challenges. So that
Hmm.
like, I feel like this is going a bit ahead, but like this could be one of the solutions when it comes to learned helplessness. Once you have identified it, which probably we'll need to go back to talking a bit more how you even like identify it. But like one of the solutions could be to talk to people who don't struggle with things that you struggle or that you perceive that you're helpless in, which in itself can be a challenge because there might be a shame coming up or there might
Yep.
be
There
some
will. Yeah. Hmm.
comparison with them where you now start to
Hmm.
feel like you're less than them,
Yeah.
which is not true. It's just that with the way you were growing up, with the life that you have been having up to this point, they might be having the same thing, or they might actually have learned helplessness in something else that you don't have. Which, like, I think sometimes we might even overgeneralize things where you might have learned that you're helpless in one thing, but now you think that you're helpless in everything.
Right. And it's really it really is a mindset because that is what can happen if you allow it is, you can begin with that filter and start seeing everything like that. And like I was sharing with you before we started recording, I talk about it all the time, but really the first step in all of this is a self-awareness, because without the self-awareness, you're not even going to realize that you have this. We're giving you examples and we're asking you, the audience to sit and think about when we describe what this is. Does that resonate with you? It's okay if it does. It's actually a good thing if you recognize that it does, right? It's self-awareness. And there is a way to unlearn this as well.
Yeah. And even like with awareness, I think one thing that could be helpful maybe to think about is what are some of the areas or where I don't even try anymore. I
Like,
don't
oh, I'm
really
not going to go there anymore. I'm not going there anymore. That's a good one. That's the one I use. I'm not doing that anymore.
yeah, it's like you tried it enough times and you're like, what's the point? I just can't change it. It's impossible. I tried everything. Which is something that I heard Tony Robbins say a lot. If you tried everything, you would get the result. You didn't try
Exactly.
everything.
Exactly. I know someone in my life that says that saying a lot, and I have to come back and say that something similar about that to them.
Yeah, and again, like if you think that, or if you have got to that conclusion, it's not that you're wrong. It's just that the things that you tried, none of them worked. So naturally you can come up with that conclusion. But the conclusion would be more likely all the things that I have tried so far, they didn't work. Which leaves
Right.
space of maybe I can
Let's
try
try something
something
else.
else. Or, and here's another thing with the trying piece. You might have tried the right thing, but not long enough or consistent enough.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah.
So like being patient with the trying, and which is getting harder and harder when we kind of live in a modern era where you get everything straight away. But it's not the
Yeah.
same when it comes to healing, when it comes to growing, when it comes to working on yourself, stuff like that. Because even like myself, I have been working on myself that I know of officially, probably like at least 12, 14 years. And still, I'm like, there's so much to work on. There's so many layers
Yeah,
to
there
go
is.
in. But at the same time, it's um, for me, it's not a reason to now go and beat myself up. I'm like, okay, let's look at how far I have come. Where even like doing podcasts, I would never, ever think about it. Actually, I remember I was like, one of my housemates when I was in university, she was like, you have like really good way to like explain stuff, and like you have really good like voice, like you should do podcasts. And I'm like, no, because of my accent. That
Oh,
is the reason. I was like, I don't have perfect English. I don't have perfect English accent. I can't do it.
wow.
That was literally my reason. I remember
Wow.
like when she said it, I was like, I just can't do it because I have accent. Like, and like to this like kind of topic, at one point I probably have learned that for me to do podcasts, for me to do, or even like, I don't know, like succeed in English language or like whatever, I had to have perfect English. There was something that I learned about I can't have an accent for me to
Wow.
have a podcast or for me to speak or help or teach in English. Which like now looking back, like right now, it's not true. I don't even think about it. Like
Yeah.
I'm probably more comfortable in English than my native language. But like at the
Yeah.
time when she said it, I was like, yeah, it would be nice, but like I can't because like
You just dismissed it immediately.
yeah, like exactly. So
I feel like as we're talking about this, I feel like it's a belief system that we get into about ourselves, right?
yeah, because
Instead of when you overcome this, when you unlearn, when you unlearn this, all of a sudden this stuff it's not part of your identity. It doesn't mean that, like, if I make a mistake, it doesn't mean I'm a mistake. It means I made a
yep,
mistake,
yep,
right? It's not, which is what I used to think. No, I'm a mistake, or I'm this, I'm that. I made it part of my identity.
yeah. And I think it's as important, even like with making mistakes, to kind of forget that we made them so that you can go make another one. Like make your mistake, learn that you made it, because it's easy to say this about one mistake. What if you make 50 mistakes trying to accomplish something, and now all you have is a list of 50 things that you tried and you failed at, and you have no one thing that you succeeded at? Sometimes it's even like helpful to
Mhm.
forget about, learn the lesson, but then forget about that mistake so you can move on to the next thing. And you don't drag all these like 50 mistakes with you to the 51st attempt, because then like the way you show up to that attempt, it's completely different than if it was the
Mhm.
first one. Because the first one you're like super excited and you have these all these like hopes and aspirations. But then if you have like 50 things that you already failed at, you're like, okay, this is kind of already like a proof that I will not succeed at this. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's even like helpful to kind of forget things or mistakes that we
Yeah. Set them
made, as long
aside.
as we learn from them. Learn from
Right.
it, let it go, move on to the
Move
next
on.
one as if it was the
Hmm.
first one.
Hmm. Yeah. So we talked about the self-awareness, right? That's really the key thing. We explained what it is.
Is there anything
So,
else that maybe can help with bringing that awareness towards identifying? Because that's like the crucial part, is identifying like, where have I learned that I am helpless, or I believe that I'm helpless? Is there anything else that maybe come in mind for you that listeners could do or apply to maybe raise that awareness?
yeah. And I love this idea right here. Yeah, as soon as you said that, it's like, pay attention to how you explain events that happen in your day. Is it optimistic or pessimistic? So that's part of the self-awareness, right? So when I'm telling a story, like what I used to do is this is a great example. I mean, excuse me, when someone would hurt me, I would tell the story over and over and over, and it was negative, and it would make me feel, right? Make me feel horrible. Every time I told that story, I literally would relive it.
Mm,
I
yeah.
don't do that anymore. But when you're explaining a story, is it on the more pessimistic or on the optimistic? So is it more negative or is it more positive, or just kind of even neutral? It doesn't have to be positive per se, but just neutral, not negative.
Not even neutral, just like realistic.
Right.
Well,
Just
it is
say
kind of
what
neutral, yeah.
yeah, it's neutral. It's like it's not positive and it's not negative. It's just you're just telling the story as though it has no effect on you.
Yeah. You just tell what happened, really.
Mm-hmm.
But what matters is how you say it. So like with that
Mm-hmm.
negative, it's like, are you complaining? Are you focusing just on the negative? Even like, and not even in the day, you can also kind of scan through different areas of life. Like for me, a big one was like, I just can't get in shape. I just can't be in
Yeah.
control of what I eat. It's impossible. I was
Mm-hmm.
literally for I think the first time when that was when I finished 75 hard for the first time, and I was able to stick to the diet for 75 days. No cheat meals. For some people also, no alcohol would be a big thing. For me, it wasn't that big. For me, it was more so
Mm-hmm.
the eating piece. Um, and for 75 days, and I actually kept going. I think I got to at least 100. And that was the first time when I was like, well, first of all, I was like, damn it, all this time that I believe that I can't do it, it's not true. Because
I just proved myself wrong.
yeah, I just did it. And also I just showed myself that it's possible. Like all
Mm-hmm.
these years, in some ways, I have been lying to myself. That's how convinced I was about how helpless I was in that area. I was
Yeah.
lying to myself and I didn't believe that I can do it or stay consistent or just like not give in or whenever I have like sense of temptation or I want to like um numb some emotions.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
just like all that time I had learned that I'm literally like I'm helpless. But then once I did it, I was like, okay, that and it's like that now automatically goes out the window because I just did it. So like I can't use that anymore. And
Yeah. You got
you know,
proven
like
wrong.
yeah, it's such a simple concept in some ways, like just prove yourself wrong. Whenever you think that you can't do it enough. Well, maybe if you're like super short and you want to do NBA, that might be like different, even though there are some people
There are some, yeah.
there are.
Surprisingly. Same in football.
Yeah, so it's like in some ways it's well, actually, it is that what you said, competing with yourself. You play that game with yourself where you're like, okay, I think I can't do it. But what if I can? And actually, one thing that listeners could do is think about if I thought that I can't do it, what would I do?
What would it look like?
Yeah. What would be the
Mm-hmm.
action steps? What would be some of the
Mm-hmm.
decisions I would be making? If I believe that I can
Yeah.
actually, that I'm not helpless or I'm powerful in this area, or I'm at least in charge or in control, what actions would I be taking or decisions I would be making? And just write down whatever comes in your mind. And then
And
what you can,
that'll snap you out of that
yeah.
place of being stuck.
And then you can go even like step further and you can write, or maybe before this exercise, whichever, you can write decisions that you have been making. Let's say you go through the day and you choose this one area. Let's say in my case, it was eating. I would just write down decisions that I was making. And now I look at these two lists and I'm like, this is my list, what I did today. This is what I would be doing, decisions that I would be making if I didn't have this problem or I wouldn't feel helpless. And I compare them. And I think whether I actually did it, what is in this list, or I didn't do. And if I didn't do, I don't beat myself up, which is really
Yeah.
important.
No judgment.
I approach it with curiosity, being like, okay, I didn't do anything from what's in this list. Oh, dumb me. Like I don't beat myself. Like I would beat myself up back then. But approaching it with curiosity, it's like, okay, out of this list, let's say if I can't do all of it, because we can't change everything day
All at
one,
once. Mm-mm.
what is one thing that I could try to implement tomorrow? Just write it down and next day, try to implement that. Then come back and look at, oh, there's like one here and one less here. Interesting. So now like starting to change it and it's
It's
doesn't have to,
motivating.
yeah. And even by that, you show yourself that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like some even like
You're
for
doing
some,
something different. You're finally doing something different in the situation. You
yeah.
finally see something different. That was the thing that was so hard for me is I would just see this big brick wall in front of me and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get through it, over it, around it. I didn't know. But all I was doing was looking at the wall. I kept looking at the wall and talking about how I couldn't get through it, how I couldn't get around it, how I couldn't get
Okay.
over it.
This is interesting. So with this, let's say you see the wall, and that's literally the only thing you see. What are some of the things that even helped you to start to even turn your head to see if there's anything there, or if it's ending there, or maybe it's ending there? Maybe there's like some stairs or something that I can use to climb over it, or maybe there's a door. Like what is it? Because this is literally what Learn Helplessness is. You just sit in front of the wall, you sit
and see the wall, and you complain
yeah.
about the wall, and
Yeah,
you
and you
talk
look
about
at
how
the
you can't get
wall,
through it.
and
You
you don't
explain
even,
all the reasons why you can't get
yeah,
through
you
it.
don't even try to throw a rock at it. You're just
No,
looking
you
at it.
just sit. You just
Yeah,
sit
you
Indian
just sit.
style in front of it.
And then you feel even worse and worse, because the longer you
Yes,
sit,
yes.
the more you see the wall, so it
Yep,
seems.
yep.
So what is it that maybe helped you to, or either triggered you to try to look at other ways, or at least get up instead of just sitting there? It's like, was there something that was helping you to start to take those steps?
I think frustration, really,
Mm.
because I became aware of, I was seeing it over and over and over, and it was very frustrating to me. And I knew, even though I couldn't see it, I believed there was a way around it. And I was
Mm.
determined to find a way. And so maybe I turned to the left and looked to the left, or the right, or maybe I went ahead full on and turned all the way around.
Have you had something where you didn't believe there was a way?
A story. Well, honestly, where my life is at today, honestly. Seriously, the way I'm living my life is better than when I first imagined what I wanted my life to be. And even what I imagined it to be, it seemed like, well, that's nice that I'm dreaming that, but
Yeah, it would be nice.
I'm doing this exercise because I was told to do it, but I don't really believe it. Like, okay, I'll just do this. Just like I didn't believe in romance. And now I'm in a romantic marriage. It's very
So even
romantic.
like with that, so because like what I'm trying to get to is, when you still believe that there's something that can be done, or there is a way, it's more likely you will actually try. But if you believe that, let's say with even like with romance, there's no way. Like there's no way that in my lifestyle I will experience it, or I'll have it in my life, or like whatever. So you don't even try. Like that's where like the lowest that you can be, where you believe it, that like it will never happen to me. It will never be in my life. It's for everybody else. It's not for me. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
And you literally, you just don't even try. So like, what is it how can people get out of that? Because that's a really kind of miserable place to be at.
I know that's a really great question too, because mine came down to frustration. Mine came down to, I saw the cycle, I saw the repetitive stuff happening, and I knew that I had to find a way to do it different. And so the thing you were talking about earlier, the baby steps, is huge. Try one small thing that's different. One, even if it's small, because like you said, once you do that one small thing and it works, it breaks that lie that you're believing that it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And I mean, that's, I don't know. I mean, unless you've got, some ideas. I mean, for me, that's what it took. I was tired of being in this place. And so many people that I see in this arena, they're in that place. They're frustrated. They're like, I know there's something not right here. I just can't figure it out. And I can't figure out how to change it. But they don't have the experience of trying something different, maybe. That's the thing. Just try one little thing different.
Yeah, I
Like
think
if
it's
you're looking forward and all you're seeing is a wall, look to the left, look to the right, look behind you. Do you still see a wall? Okay, you don't see a wall. So what can you do? You can stand up and maybe take a step in a different direction. It can be such a small step, but that small step is going to break that lie of all I see is a wall. That's all I see is a wall. Does that make sense?
yeah, because like even with that looking somewhere, that already is like you starting to step out of it.
Correct.
Because like
That's a big step.
I'm just
Huge.
trying to think what is the bridge between you being in that helpless space where you literally don't even try. Like it's such a hard
Well, that's where
place
you
to
can,
be,
that's where you end up in depression and anxiety.
which can make you even like lower or even like
Yeah, it just adds to it. It's
yeah,
just, it's
it adds to it.
re-traumatizing you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I mean,
yeah, I
I
think
guess I never got to the place where I stayed in that place. So that's why it's kind of hard for me to answer, is because I didn't get stuck for a long time in that place because it frustrated me. And it's, when you're in that learned helplessness state, you feel like you have no control, no say. Like you're just sitting here, literally a blob, and this thing's happening to you, and you just have to sit here and just kind of take it. That is how I felt. And that is how I lived my childhood, right? All this stuff was happening to me, and I had no say, no control, nobody protecting me. There was nothing I could do about it. I was just a little girl. And ooh, boy, that's you can hear a little attitude in my voice with that one, but that's true. And that's what carried into, yeah. So that's very frustrating. So now I'm an adult and I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute. I'm now an adult. I'm not that little girl that's helpless anymore.
yeah,
And it
being
just,
able to distinguish it.
yeah, yeah. And I'm sick and tired of this, and I'm not going to do this anymore. So I got to figure this out. Believe me, it didn't happen overnight. Like you said, it took a long time for me to figure this out because I didn't have the help. I had to figure this out on my own, you know? But that's what it takes. And in a lot of the trauma work that I'm doing, this is really common. And the state of being frustrated and the state of being depressed and this, and just like, what is it? Why am I like this? And the thing
Yeah.
is, it is a state that isn't your fault. This was something that was created from experiences that happened to you in a belief system, but it's not true. It's not true. And looking for evidence, like the one person that I know of in my life that has this, I have to continually show them different. Well, you're saying this, but do you remember when this happened? And then it's like, oh, well, yeah. Okay, yeah. So there is evidence that it's not always like that. Okay, it's not always like that. And then there's the frustration on the person who they almost get mad that there's another way out.
Because
They
then
almost get mad.
it means that all the things that you believed all these years
Weren't true.
might have been
And
wrong.
you've wasted your time.
Yeah. Okay, so there's something interesting that you touched on that I feel like could be helpful to maybe dive into. Because like few things that I wrote about how we get to learn helplessness was about pretty much like you get to a place where you learn to stop trying. But like what can get to that place, similar to what you mentioned at the beginning when you were like reading through that information about it, is like when you are in situations where you're under, let's say your parents are like really controlling, or like there's high criticism, or you are met with a lot of punishment or like bad consequences for certain things that you're doing or trying out as a kid. And like you pretty much like you feel like you're in a cage. And actually, as they were speaking, I was thinking about how one thing that could help, kind of in alignment with that idea of baby steps, is to understand or try to distinguish what is it that you can control, what is it that you can't.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
But
That's
then,
some self-awareness.
yeah, then the next thing is to, because that learned helplessness also, I feel like it's so linked with that sense that I just can't control anything.
Yeah.
Then it's to find one thing that you can control that you can do every day. It can literally be making your bed, something simple, but you can't control that piece. So through doing that and through doing that consistently, now you can start to teach yourself that there's actually things that I can be in control of. I can be in control of my bed being like made in the morning, or something else that you can come up with that you can do that gives you that sense of, okay, I'm in control of this. Because then even if it's small, but you're now, because like a lot of times our brains don't know the difference between big and small, but you show yourself that you actually are in control. There's certain things that you are in control and that you can control. I don't know if I would recommend to start, especially at the beginning, or if you're trying to do it yourself, to start with the area that you feel the most helpless in.
Yeah, no, start with something very simple. Yeah.
Yeah, start with something where you might even have, you might want to have change, and you might have some belief or some level of belief that you can have change, but you haven't been too successful or successful consistently. Maybe start there, because then you can slowly start to bring more encouragement for yourself through those action steps that you take. And then you can move it to, because then as you do that, you will start to build like confidence or belief, or just even proof outside of you that there's certain things that you actually can improve. Surprise. And then you can start to transition that into other areas that you might feel more kind of hopeless or helpless in.
Yeah, and you're right, because one of the recommendations and some of the articles that I've been reading about this, it's been so fascinating, is that sense of not controlling, and to implement things that do bring some control back into your life, which we all know we can only control this. We can't control each other, but we can control this. And so that's powerful that you can control this. And that is what can actually help bring you out of that. Because what you have to do is what you're describing is you need to unlearn this and relearn how to live. It is a process. And every article that I read, it's you have to unlearn this. So there are steps that you have to take. So, and I say that not to discourage you, but actually to encourage you, so that you don't think, well, I've done this for a week now and it hasn't made any changes. So it's just time, and it's being repetitive, and you know, just stay consistent. Like you said, pick one thing and be consistent with it for a while, so that you're not overwhelmed, and make it a more simple one to come over. And once you start showing yourself that the evidence is wrong, and that the truth is that you aren't helpless, that you do have some control over this, then it goes much faster. It goes much, much faster.
Yeah.
It just takes it takes some time you're basically kind of reprogramming your thinking.
Yep. And one of the best ways to reprogram is repetition.
Correct.
That's
Yes.
why it might
Yes.
take a while. But also, if you think about it, and this is a realization that I got a few years ago in one of the podcasts, about how powerful it is that once you start to change these like small things, or you start to take those small baby steps, you actually show yourself that you are in control, and you can control what you do,
Your destiny.
what actions you take, what you eat, how you move, who you spend your time with. You
Yep.
can literally transform your whole life, and you have that power. And it all starts with you just showing yourself that you can make bed in the morning. It can be as simple as that, or something super small that and like, good suggestion that I usually give to people with baby steps is to make it so small that it would feel ridiculous not to do it.
Ah, that's a good one. That's good.
Because a lot of times we all are probably familiar with New Year's resolutions,
Yes.
where we want to change everything in our lives, and we want to do everything for like train 5 hours, like never have any cheat meals, and work 24 hours, and do this and do that, and have family time and all this kind of stuff, where like, one is you physically can't get that done, but also, oh, and like read a book a day on top of it. But like, even though it sounds ridiculous in the examples I'm giving it, but that's kind of what we're doing. That's kind of what we're doing. The numbers are a bit smaller, but that's what we're doing. And now we try to change so many patterns all at once with huge leaps. And usually what I see is like after a few days, people just fall off. Maybe a few weeks, maybe a few weeks. But if you make it
Yeah.
super small, of course, it's not as flashy. You can't walk around being like, I'm reading 1 page a day. Like it's not as exciting to talk about it versus like I'm reading 1 book a day, which takes you whole day. But like still, it's when you do those like baby steps, it's one is you make sure you actually, and that's why I said it has to be so small that it feels ridiculous not to do it, because then you will be like, and like sometimes it might, let's say with reading, it might not be to read a page. Even that might feel a lot. Or some days you're like, I'm so tired. Okay, read 1 sentence. And even if that is too much, open a book. That's it. And if you do it enough times, like eventually you'll be like, okay, I might as well read it. And then the more you do it, the more you literally train yourself, you train your brain to do it. And with time, it gets easier to do it because you have less resistance to doing it, to starting it. Because a lot of times when it comes to whatever action we are taking, let's say like working out is another example, because you can attach physical pain to it, or physical kind of exhaustion, or getting tired. If you now say like, I have to do workout like an hour every day, and you haven't been training for 6 months, now you think about like, you just did your one, like first day, you're like super motivated. You're like, yeah, let's do it. Then next day, what happens next day? You wake up super sore because like you haven't been training in a while. So like you wake up sore and you're like, nah, I kind of don't feel like it, but it's like 1 hour. And now you have to convince yourself for 2 hours to do 1 hour workout, which you probably like wouldn't like, if you're really, really convincing, then you're probably going to do it. But like how long you will sustain it, instead of let's do like 5 minutes exercise, 5 minutes every day.
Go take a walk, whatever.
Because like, and then what happens actually, and this is like kind of interesting piece, because people think that it's about length that you set that goal in, but actually the biggest hurdle that you need to overcome is starting it. Because then once you start those 5 minutes, you're like, might as well go for 5 more. I feel like a bit more today. And if you do only 5, check, green light, you have finished it today. And you can feel good about yourself. Instead of now you spend 2 hours sitting, looking at shoes and being like, I really don't want to do it because yesterday was so painful and I kind of know what's coming and I'm super sore. And then you end up like not doing it, and now you beat yourself up and you make yourself feel even worse, and you kind of get in that vicious cycle, which like,
and then you confirm that learned helplessness.
Exactly. And I'm speaking, and I can tell this all in detail because I've been living it.
Yeah, me too.
I know it all. I know it all.
Me too.
So like it's something that even like when you on days, which I think is also important, because like you will fall off, even if you have baby steps, you will have days when you don't do it. And it's important to speak your words, to give yourself grace, because like if you now use that day as a reason to, oh, I can never do it right, or like I can, it's like, first of all, it's not never, it's 1 day or one decision. That's the first thing. Even like for me today, I wanted to go for a bike ride, and I was like recording podcast before this one, and we went a bit over, and then like with this one we started a bit early, and I was like, I like, naturally my usual response would, first I wouldn't even do anything, like I went for a walk between the recordings, but then after that I was like, okay, this is interesting because this is actually my chance to practice. So I won't end up doing the workout that I wanted to do, and I will do one probably later anyways, but what I could practice is compassion, and not to beat myself up, and be like, you know what, the whole last week, I don't know how many hours I was training, but it was at least like 2 hours a day, if not more. And I was like, well, this is my chance to have like active recovery day.
There you go.
And instead of beating myself up, being like, I have to be intense every day because I have this race coming up and I have this, I
have these goals.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, like, first of all, it's not even 1 day, it's like 1 workout. And I was like, I'm breaking up my like my streak, because I did like every day, like I was cycling, and now I'm like, I won't be cycling today, so I'm like breaking it up, and I'm like, okay, like that kind of sucks, but like you can always pick it up and just like, at any moment
Yeah.
you can continue. And I was just like, what I did kind of the opposite that I would have done before. And this actually can be good kind of comparison of where I was versus where you can be or where you can get. So usually I would just beat myself up, and I actually wouldn't end up doing it anyways. So I not only
Mhm.
not do it, now I beat myself up and I feel
Mhm.
shitty. And what that would trigger, I'm feeling bad. So I'm like, what's the point anyways? And I grab a
Right.
bag of chips.
Yep. There you go. That I know that scenario so well. Yep. Been there.
And you just do the whole thing instead of like, and like, if you think about it, it's so ridiculous. But I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one doing this.
Nope.
And
You're
and
not.
then and I like that. What happened now is I was like, okay, I don't have that much time, and I wanted to go do at least something, some kind of movement. So I just went for a walk, and then we were like recording this, and after this, I'm probably just gonna do my workout, and I won't be cheating on my diet, because I I didn't kind of trigger that vicious negative cycle of
Mhm.
emotions, because now I'm like, okay, I would have wanted it to be the other way, but this actually might be good because my body actually might need some recovery after
Mhm.
the low that I have been putting it under, and it's actually helpful because it can help me to prevent some like unnecessary injuries
Injuries.
or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Because I want to think I'm a superhuman, but I'm not.
But you
So
are human.
yeah, exactly. So it's just like going through that, and there's like no and it's in some ways it's even weird to be in this place, because I'm like, I literally can predict what I would be doing, the way I would be thinking, the way I would
Yeah.
be feeling. And
Mhm.
that feeling is so bad, and it's so like, you just don't like it, but you still go through it because you're helpless. Um, and actually, like, as I'm talking about this, that's another thing that we might talk about is the importance of self-compassion
Mhm.
in this.
Especially, yeah, in this area for sure, because it's really, that is part of the vicious cycle of this, is that you do end up being really hard on yourself. And it is, you don't follow through, then you beat yourself up, and then it never feels good to beat yourself up, and so and then it seems like it drops you down to a new low, right?
And then because you're in that new low, now you beat yourself up for
Harder.
being there, and then you get even
Right.
lower.
Right.
Yep.
Right. It's a really vicious cycle. And so, you know, the one thing I remember you telling me this, and it's really stuck with me, is we really need to not judge ourselves, but be curious
Yeah.
and give yourself, and like you said, give yourself grace, because every day is not going to be perfect. And that's okay. That's okay. If you're
Okay.
feeling really tired, like on the exercise, if you're feeling really tired and sick, you shouldn't be working out.
I have a question for you about that, kind of breaking that loop of beating yourself up.
Hmm.
Because there's two scenarios. One is when you're kind of advanced in your awareness and you might be able to catch yourself up, and as you're going through that, you have some tools or some techniques or some awareness where you can stop it. But it's not all of us. We're not, like, a lot of us were not there. And there was a point when I wasn't there as well, and I still at times I have to kind of look back at it and I'm like, ah, dang it, and kind of work through it afterwards. So
Yeah.
sometimes we can only partly or internally resolve it looking back, which also comes with a lot of shame or like disappointment
Hmm.
or sabotage and all this kind of stuff. So maybe like with that, what are some of the ways that can help, whether it's like with self-compassion or just avoiding to go more down in that vicious cycle when, let's say, somebody has identified something that they're like helpless in, they now are starting to take action, it's not going well, or they're like failing, or they're not perfect with the first attempt, or they don't get results as quick as they would want to, and now they make one bad decision that might be getting them off track. And what is that can help them after they have done it to kind of avoid keeping back into that helplessness mode?
Well, i- i- the fact that you would be aware of getting to that point you're in a good place actually, because if you're aware of that, you're in a place where you can make some changes. And so for me, the thing that I realized that I did is I disconnected myself from my feelings, so that, and your feelings and your emotions are what help you understand kind of what's going on. If you really dive deep, if you slow down and you pay attention to how you feel and you start questioning that. And for me, again, I got tired of feeling like that. Listen to your body, listen to how you feel. And it's okay. And not judge and criticize yourself for it. But if you allow yourself to feel it and try to, I guess, try to ask yourself questions. Why am I feeling like this? Why is this hitting me so hard? What is it? What is the root of what is going on here? The self-awareness will help, and understanding your emotions, like understanding that you have emotions, reconnecting with your emotions, because your emotions it's going to help you navigate through and get down to that root. And it could start out as anger, but it's probably not going to be anger. There's going to
Or
probably
in
be,
my case, it wasn't anger because I wasn't allowed to be angry.
yeah, there you go.
I
Yeah.
think for
Oof.
me, it was more
Wow.
so probably shame
Yeah.
or embarrassment,
If you're feeling
disappointment.
shame, you really need to dive into that. In my opinion and in my experience, shame has not ever helped me. Guilt is a little different, because guilt can actually be motivating.
You can
Shame,
still take some action or more action out of guilt versus shame.
yeah, because shame shuts you down. Shame shuts your voice down. It shuts me down. It puts me into this vicious cycle of being so hard on myself. And we're not supposed to be hard on ourselves like that. We're not supposed to be beating ourselves up. And so that is something, like, if you recognize that you're doing that, if you recognize that you are regularly criticizing yourself, being judgmental, pay attention. If you're being really hard on yourself, if you're being, calling yourself names, or, being very critical of everything you do, that right there is a big red flag that should be getting your attention, that you should be looking at as to, why am I doing this? Wait a minute. And
Okay,
so much of this,
go
good.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I lost my thought.
Okay. As you were saying about that, if you get to that level where you're able to see it or you're aware of it, you're lucky. That's actually really important that you brought it up, because some people might not be aware of it. So,
Well, that would cause them more shame, right? If they don't realize that could cause them more shame and dig them deeper. It's actually a
yeah.
good thing. You're aware of it.
Yeah. One thing that could help in case because like anybody listening, if you're not aware, you won't be aware that you're not aware. That's a thing. So,
Yeah, that's true.
and
That's
this is
true.
not to kind of like laugh at you. I'm just speaking from experience.
Right.
And in that case, it can be that we're literally blind and we don't even know what we're blind to. That's why like there's
Have
such
our
a thing as
blinders
blind
on.
spots. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do to even like start to build that awareness is, one, which I really like that you pointed out, even like feeling it or sitting with it. You can literally take a few minutes a day and just sit with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do anything, just sit with yourself. All the
Mm-hmm.
emotions, all of it, just like, and learn to allow yourself. And this is not something I like to do. Learn to
I think
allow
I know where
yourself
you're
to
going.
feel.
Yeah.
Feel emotions, even if they're bad, even if they're not something that you want to feel. Don't try to suppress them, like feel them and just sit with yourself. Sometimes it might be something exciting. You also want to allow yourself to sit with something that's a good emotion. Even
Mm-hmm.
like, let's say you get a promotion, like actually sit with yourself and be like,
Mm-hmm.
hell yeah, like
Yeah, give
I feel
yourself a lot of
amazing.
credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's something that can be really helpful, because then what happens is that the more you practice this, and not in a sense that you now sit for hours, which again, you might not have time for that, the more in a sense of every day, 3 minutes. So if you do it enough times, like it adds up. And you're practicing it, because then by the time you get to a situation where you might feel something emotionally, you're now able to internally scan yourself and identify how you're feeling. Even like one thing that I recently started to do is at the end of the day, I would just write down my mood in like 3 words.
Mm.
I would just try to identify how I'm feeling. Because most of the time I'm like, I don't even think about how I feel. I don't feel bad. Like, I don't remember the last time I would feel bad. I might feel like a bit anxious or something. I'm just like worried or like something, or like overwhelmed or like whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's not something that at this point would be affecting me or the way I would see myself. Um, but at the same time, I haven't actually been like, okay, it's the end of the day. I'm just sitting now with myself. How do I feel? What's like what kind of mood am I in?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like good, like normal, okay, like just and like one thing that could be helpful even would be to like Google some emotions or some ways how you could actually feel, because a lot of us we're just like we're so used to being like, hey, how are you? I'm good. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, good, like that's all we know, good, bad,
What
and
does that
like,
mean?
okay, like what is it, like what is that
Mm-hmm.
emotion that you're feeling? And then you're starting now to learn to even like, well, one is communicate with yourself and your body when you're like, how do I feel? Like, how do I actually feel? What's the feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then like with the being curious piece, you can even like think about, why do I feel this way? Or like what is
Mm-hmm.
it that, let's say, today made me, if I'm feeling down, like was there something today that was said or that happened that kind of made me feel bad? Or maybe I just woke up feeling bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's sometimes it's just like we now want to try, which also is like another thing, like we try to find reasons why we feel a certain way, but sometimes we just feel bad,
We're
like,
tired. We just don't feel
yeah,
good.
you might not be like tired, you don't even know why. You slept perfectly, everything in life is going well, and you still feel bad. And it's like there might not be a reason, it's just like you just feel bad. It might just be
Mm-hmm.
for a day that you just feel down, it might be a week you just feel down. There can be all these, like there can be so many reasons, but it's just like sometimes we focus so much. It's important to know how you feel, but we focus so much on it, especially when it's bad, that now we're like, why do I feel bad? Like,
Yeah. We
like
have to have an
what? Yeah,
answer.
yeah. What is the answer? It's like, how can I fix it? Where in
Mm-hmm.
reality, you actually just might need to, which is kind of ironic. If you sit with it, it might just go away because you allow yourself to feel it
Mm-hmm.
instead of
And
it's
maybe
just
you just
bubbling
need to feel
there.
it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's just bubbling there, waiting for you to feel it, and all the day you're just like pushing it away. No time, no
Mm-hmm.
time. I don't have time for it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just sitting with it, and like it doesn't take that long for emotion to go through you and just be gone. But we're just like, no, no, no. Just stop, sit with it, and just be like, okay, how do I feel? Oh, I feel
Well,
shitty.
and I'll tell you, I used to say I didn't want to start crying because I didn't know if I would be able to stop. Like I felt like I would lose
Hmm.
control.
What
And
changed?
um that I know that's not true. I know that's not true.
But how did you
Um
knew? How did you get to know it when there was a time when?
I really believed it. I allowed myself to cry. I had to start I had to do the baby steps. I had to start letting myself cry a little bit here and there when I felt, because what I would do, and not always, but a lot of times, my pain I would stuff, right? I wouldn't let it out. It would have to be under certain circumstances that I would let that out. And it was under very few circumstances. And so I just started letting it go. And the thing is, with the people that I was close with, I would tell them, okay, you might see tears, but don't freak out. Like it's okay. Because I was also worried about what everybody else how they were gonna react. Like I didn't want to be a burden on them, right? Because I'm gonna start crying. And so, I just started letting it happen. I'm still working on that. I'm not a free crier. I don't just like, oh, I'm just gonna cry. But I do notice as time is going on that emotions are coming up much easier and I'm not fighting them. And they're coming up in places I didn't see before. Like I wouldn't have even seen that they would have a certain song that I've known. Like this happened the other day. There was a song that I heard. It's a song I grew up with. It's a song I knew really well. And I always liked it. But there was something different about hearing it this time. And it hit some deep emotions in me. And I let it go. I let myself cry.
Yeah, I think I had the same. in some ways that learned helplessness where I'm not allowed to cry.
Well,
Or
yeah, because I was told, yeah, I'll give you something to cry about.
ah,
Yeah, that was a big one in
I
our
wasn't
generation.
allowed to cry, or it's not like somebody told me you're not allowed. It's just something that I learned.
Right.
That I had to be strong, and or like I had to be strong when, especially like in the friendships. Um, and I couldn't like, and I literally had this even like I think to some extent even like fear to cry in front of others where others would see it, because
Yeah.
then like
It's
that's the moment
weak.
when I'm weak. I'm
You're
weak. I
weak.
can't be weak. I have to be
Yeah.
strong.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's why like if I would cry, it would be when I'm by myself. And even then it would be like complete it wasn't the way it's now where it's just like a release mechanism. It was like full on. You just get in victim mode, and then whatever comes up as you're crying, you just get you even like more into that victim mode, and you just go down in that. And even like thinking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it was so exhausting just living that way, because like you could show no
Mm-hmm.
problems, no weakness, no nothing, like and even like last Christmas when I had a conversation with one of my friends who I think we know each other for like I don't know, like 7-ish years, maybe no, maybe even more now. She said that it was the first time she actually saw me as a person, because I was always
Wow.
like I had to be in charge. I have to have everything like kind of in control, and I'm just there for others. Like I have no problems. Like I can't have no problems because I'm there for others. That's kind of my role.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and and then we like started talking, and she's like, "This is the first time that I actually saw you as like a person. That you actually like you have challenges, and you like certain
Yeah.
things that you're going through, you're working through." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
used to just doing it by myself. That's what I learned. You
Mm-hmm.
have
That's
to,
what I did. And
yeah,
you get misunderstood. You totally get misunderstood. And it is for me, it was definitely a coping mechanism. And another thing I just thought of as we were talking about this crying thing that maybe some of our listeners can relate to too. Because you mentioned feeling weak, right? If you cry, you're weak. When I cried, it created more abuse because
oh,
is with my brother, because it was what he wanted. He wanted to get me to cry. And so he got me crying, and then yeah, it would get worse. So for me, there's that whole trigger, but I've worked through that. I am in a safe place now. My mind understands that I'm in a safe place now and I can cry. It's still not easy for me in certain things. I can cry at a drop of a hat, but in certain other things, I'm still working on it.
yeah, I'm still learning how to be angry."
I'll show you. I'm good at that one. I'm really good at that one. I can show you.
master master class in being angry.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah,
I
but
was
it's
a whole
actually
pro at
like really
that.
interesting, because even like when it comes to learn helplessness, um, this might be linked, this might not be linked, but there's certain things that we learn that we can't be or can't have. So like in my case, it was being angry. I was a peacemaker. So
Mm.
I had to be calm. I had to be friendly. I can't be angry because that's not how you make peace with people. So like any frustration, anything that I would have, I think I would go more so towards sadness. Like the moment I would, and it is really weird, like that mechanism. The moment I would, and it might be similar for you with anger, where like you might feel pain and it turns into anger instead.
Right.
So like
Yes.
for
Yeah.
me, it was more so, well, probably like under anger, there's always like pain anyways, under most emotions. But like the moment I would feel anger, it would just turn into sadness.
hmm That's
It
how
just
you,
wasn't
yeah, that's
allowed
how
to come
you
out.
coped. That's how your mind learned to cope with anger because you had the belief that you can't be angry. So but you can be sad. You can be
Yep.
sad,
And
right?
even then, like I can't necessarily be sad around others because then I'm weak.
And in my case, if you're crying, I'll give you something to cry about. I'll give you something
Oh
to cry
my
about.
gosh.
So mine came out anger.
Yeah, so it's really interesting how even like with, well, when it comes to like abuse and trauma, especially with like repetitions, like
hmm
once you have that, similar to like to what you read like before, with those repetitions, that's where it's, especially when you feel trapped, you're literally now in this
Yeah.
situation you have no control. You're literally trapped and you have to go through this, whatever the experience is, like not just once, but like several
Repetitive.
times,
Mhm.
repetitive. And you just learn that even if at the beginning you might resist or you might try to do something
Mhm.
or to try to like resolve it, you learn that you can't do it, and then at some point you just learn that it is what it is, and then
Yeah.
you take that with you. And that's where anybody listening, like, I just want you to know that there's a hope. You can find something that works. And I feel that the most important thing is for you not to stop trying. That's so
Yes.
important, because if you
Keep
stop,
trying.
yeah, like even
You'll
if you
find a
do,
way out.
yeah, and try different things and try
Talk
like
to people, have people help you, because sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the one thing that does come to me is that we were talking about blinders. The blinders are on. We aren't able to remove the blinders, and that's where other people can come in and help us with that and help us see things differently.
what to do if there's too much shame to talk to somebody. Because I feel like that's something that similar
That
to
is
what you
something I
have.
did deal with.
Yeah, and you have said in past episodes that it takes what, like 50 years or something for somebody to actually
4 decades.
express or share. Yeah, 4
Mhm.
decades. So what can a person do? Because this is really important, especially if you have or you share or talk to somebody who at least at the very least gives you space with no judgment. They
Right.
don't
You do need a
necessarily,
safe, you need a
yeah.
safe space. You definitely need a safe space. And if it could be a therapist, it could be a friend. It's hard when it's a partner because there's such an emotional connection there. It's a little tough. But first, you do need to find a safe space. And it is someone who is just going to listen and they aren't going to judge you and criticize you. And certainly someone that isn't going to go and share your secrets.
What was it that maybe helped you to start to share, or
I
isn't
tested the
even,
waters.
yeah, because like it's such a hard thing to do, because even like for me there's certain things that I'm like rarely I would feel comfortable to share that with like people, even people that I trust. I'm like, I don't know if I'm there yet.
There's things on this podcast that I've shared that I hadn't shared with anybody ever before already. It's crazy.
Yeah, so like even like for you, for somebody who's coming from a place where you had no voice, to now being able to share literally like trauma that you have gone through publicly, um w- I'm just like thinking for somebody who's in that space where they're like they literally, it's like eating them, that stuff that's in them, that they're not like, they either don't feel like they have a
Yeah.
safe space, or they don't know anybody who has ever made them feel safe, or they have tried to share and they're either like made fun of or not taken seriously, or like anything like above. So like what is it that can be helpful for them going
Yeah.
through that?
One thing, sorry, bump my table here. One thing that I can think of, if you don't have any safe place to go to, is to write it out. This doesn't sound very powerful when you tell this story, but when you actually do this, it's very powerful. And what you do is you're going to sit down and you're going to write whatever's on your mind. You write it exactly the way it's in your head. Try not to think about it. Write it out and just keep writing until you can't write anymore.
You know what else I
Mhm.
thought of? You can talk to your dog.
You can talk to your dog because there is something extremely powerful. And I've said this before, there's something very extremely powerful about getting those thoughts out of your head and
Yeah.
either saying them, like you said, or writing them out. And then the powerful part about it is when this is going to be powerful. This is the most powerful part, is when you are done writing, read it out loud. Read it out loud. And it's very powerful. And there's going to be emotions. I guarantee you, there's going to be emotions that come up. And when they do, if you cry, cry. If you're angry, let it out in a safe way. If you need to scream, if you need to punch a pillow, whatever those emotions as you're reading that, because I guarantee you emotions are going to come up when you read it out loud. That is, if you have no one else. I mean, even if you have someone else, that's a great way to start, because you're getting this belief, these lies, these things that are torturing you, you're getting them out of your head. And somehow, for some reason, when you get them out of your mind and you get them on a piece of paper or you say them, they all of a sudden don't have the power over you anymore.
I think it's because you're able to, and that's kind of what awareness is.
Yeah.
You're observing them.
Correct. It's not a part of you anymore. You're observing them almost as a third person.
Yep. Is there like anything else that comes in mind as like solutions, or maybe that you saw in the research that you did that can be helpful with learned helplessness?
Well, the self-awareness is one. So paying real close attention to your emotions. And, questioning, like you were saying, questioning your thoughts. And one of the things that you can do, and this is, it doesn't go smooth at first, I'm just warning you, is to, instead of looking for what's going to prove you right, start looking for stuff that's going to prove you wrong. Even if it's a little thing. And if it's a little thing, take it, grab it, believe it. And it's almost like a wheel that's getting going. It's, you're getting momentum,
And I think with this also, we could add to avoid or try to avoid the black and white thinking.
Yeah. Yes.
Or
And I
going
was
into
stuck in
like
that.
always or never.
Yeah. Avoid those words if you can, because I think it's probably extremely rare that you never do something or you always do something, right? It's really rare that it's that black and white. And that is what I had. I had very black and white thinking. And I've talked about this before. I had a lousy coach, but the one good thing that he said was, Lisa, you think in black and white, you need to start thinking in color. And that stuck with me. It still sticks. I still remind myself, okay, how can I look at that? I'm looking at it this way. Is there a different way I can see it? That was really helpful.
And you know what could be another thing that could help with this is identify somebody who, let's say in my case, it was like eating. So let's say I would identify somebody who doesn't have that problem, and I would be like, okay, how would they look at it?
Yes. Kind
What
of look
would
at
they
someone who's
think?
normal, that, in your mind, like, I do it this way, but this person does it what looks like normal. How are they doing? That's a great point.
And then you're able to, well, one is what I said before, like you're able to see that there's more than just the way that you have been experiencing it or seeing. And
Right.
it can be triggering, because then I would see that somebody is not struggling with it at all. And
Yeah.
here I am, like suffering for
Yep.
years, and I still don't see the end. I don't even see the tunnel. Like
I'm not even there yet.
Yeah, and it can be triggering. So I'm just like warning you up front. It can be triggering, because then you're like, why is it so easy for them? But one thing that I want you to remember is that they might have something that you might not even know about that they're struggling with. Like we all struggle with something. And it's not for you to use that as a reason to beat yourself up more. It's for you to get inspiration of other ways how you can look at things.
Right.
But then as you start to shift that perspective, or you start to observe more the way they think about it, the way they look at it, you now can start to see that, okay, I have been looking at it kind of at this like this the whole time. And they're looking at it completely different. And not even trying to go into whys or why not. It's just like, interesting. And then you can
There
have
is a different
conversation.
perspective.
Yeah, and then you can have conversation with somebody else. They might tell you something else that you're like, I have never thought about it this way. Like for me with competition, never even considered it as something that could be beneficial for me to get better. Are you kidding me? I was like, no, like it's for people who have ego issues. They always want to win.
Yeah.
Like you have to learn to lose. That was kind of my like justification of it. But then like when he explained it, I was like, oh, interesting. And I like I have never really looked at competition the same, really.
Yeah.
Because,
It's those little switches that we get like that.
and that's why you
They're
want
little,
to,
but they're profound. They can completely change the direction of your
yeah,
life.
yeah. And like, and even like with this, I would probably challenge people to try to talk more with people who don't think the way you do. Not
And you don't
looking to
have to
agree
pour
with
your
them.
heart out to them. You don't have to share everything. But that's the very
You
thing
don't
that
even
you're
have to share
describing.
anything, just ask them questions.
Right. Right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And instead of being judgmental towards them, being more curious. Go ask them. Hey, how do you,
Especially when
yeah.
they're doing something that, because I think it's, especially when you're like in learn or like you feel helpless, it's easy to point fingers and be like, it's easy for them. It's like,
Yeah.
well, it actually might be easy for them, but you want to have a conversation with them and understand why it's easy for them.
Yeah. Maybe they
Instead
found all
of,
the shortcuts.
yeah, instead of being like, well, it's easy for them, but it's not easy for me because, and come up with the whole story, and you actually
You're right
reinforce
back
that
in your cycle.
helplessness. Exactly.
Mhm. You're
So
just
like
reinforcing it.
it can be triggering to have conversations with those people, because then it's kind of like poking the wound that you might have about the thing that you're struggling with, just seeing
Mhm.
how easy it is for them and knowing how hard it is for you. But at the same time, like that's the place where you can actually learn. Like
Mhm.
that's where you can learn something or get a perspective that you might have not had before about this specific thing. So
Mhm.
being open-minded is super important, and that's why you want to sit with yourself, with your emotions, because when you talk to people who think differently or they find things that you find hard easy, I don't know,
There's proof right there. There's something different to do
yeah,
right there.
but
That
it
you're not
will
stuck.
trigger you. It
Oh
will
yeah, it'll
trigger you,
trigger you. It'll trigger emotions
and
and
it's so annoying.
yeah, it is.
Especially like when
And
you're asking for help to somebody who for whom it's like a not a big deal. Just another
yeah.
day. And you're
Well,
like,
just hearing that, watch a skinny person eat. Um, I say it like that because that's what was said to me, but really the real statement is, watch a healthy person eat.
yeah, healthy probably is
And
better.
it was irritating to me. Yeah, it irritated me, but it stuck with me, and there was something to say about that. And I have done that over the years. And even though I didn't implement it until probably over the last 5 years, um, but it's true.
And imagine
And if
like you've been implementing for 5 years already. When was the time that you would believe that you can implement this for 5 years?
say that again.
So like now you have been implementing this for like 5
Mhm.
years, let's say. Was there a time that you would even believe that you can implement something even like for a year?
I didn't even think I could ever wrap my head around this completely, let alone, go a year or 5 years or make it part of my whole life. I mean, I am getting a whole new relationship with food. It really, truly. And it's a mind bender because there's a lot of beliefs that I had, and I'm changing those beliefs. Yeah, it's crazy. No, I didn't even think I could ever do it for even a day, let alone
Oh yeah,
forever.
me too. Me too. I'm not
Mhm.
at forever yet,
Yeah.
but it's so weird how I know that, let's say, when it comes to food and like food decisions, because that was one of the places where I had the most shame and the most kind of
Yeah.
negative emotions. I would never feel like, well, I have gone from place of complete helplessness. I was like, I didn't even like, it wasn't about giving up. I would still keep trying, but I would keep trying with being convinced that it won't work anyway. Like,
Yeah.
I would kind of just like get frustrated. Then I start to do something that I'm like, nah, it doesn't really work. And then I just would go in that cycle, but I wouldn't, there was no end of that cycle. It was just a cycle that was kind of
Yeah.
toxic cycle. So like where I am right now,
Yeah.
I'm like, the relationship with food is much different. And even though there might be moments when I don't even feel like I don't feel in control. But even like, let's say when I have cravings or I give in cravings at the time that I wouldn't want to, I I'm able to cut that pattern or stop that pattern
Mhm.
so quickly, like compared to before, where
Mhm.
the moment I go off, that's it. It will be months at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just off. Just
Yeah.
completely. I'm like, okay, this is my give up sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
give up like properly.
I go all out. That's the same with me.
All in.
Yeah, all in. Forget it.
Yeah, now it's literally like completely opposite. Even like on days when I would have cheat meals, it literally would mean nothing compared to what it was before. And I'm in control as well. And I'm able to stop. That's a big one for me.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
able to stop, and I'm like, yeah,
I
I think
know.
I'm good for a day. Like,
Yeah, I
or
didn't finish the whole bag of chips. I ate a
yeah.
fourth of it instead of the whole
And you're
bag.
and you're
Seriously.
sick and you're
Seriously.
still eating. And then there's
Yes.
like two
Yes.
more.
Yeah. You know,
Waiting.
one of the things that I've implemented, this is part of self-awareness, and it sounds really simple, but it's for me, it really works, is I don't have the rules on I can't eat this, I can't eat that for me. But if I'm eating something and I don't like it, I don't eat it. And that sounds like, well, duh. But when you have someone who's emotionally eating, you're not tasting the food. You're not even tasting it. You're not tasting it. You're feeling something else. And now that I'm coming out of the emotional eating, I am much more aware of the foods that I like and don't like. And if I don't like it, I'm not going to eat it. Because part of eating is to enjoy it. It first and foremost is to, of course, fuel your body. But we're meant to enjoy it.
Yeah, you know what? Like I have noticed with this, I have you probably actually will need to do probably an episode on this. We were talking
Yeah, I'm
about doing
sure.
this.
We're already,
but like-
yeah, I know. This is the whole episode, more than one.
Yeah, we probably can talk on it on that episode. But it's something that's like really interesting to even like sometimes I'm asking my body if that's what it wants. And I'm like,
Yes, yes.
is it something that like you want right now? And sometimes I would have this craving. I have this craving for so
Yeah.
long. And by the time I get to even literally like grabbing for that food, something in my body is like, actually, I don't feel like it. I'm like, okay,
I don't need that.
okay,
Yeah, I
that's
don't need
fine.
that.
I don't need it. But before it was all in head.
Right. You're not even tasting the food, because some of the stuff that I'll taste it now that I used to eat, I'm like, "Ugh, it's horrible. Like, why did I eat that? It's because
Actually,
I was feeling something else.
on this learned helplessness, how much of it is in body versus in head? Because like body is carrying a lot of emotions, a lot of associations.
It's totally connected.
Yeah.
It's totally connected.
And that's why I think it's important to do that sitting with yourself and feeling those emotions and connecting with your body. Because as rational as we want to be, we're still emotional beings, and big part of us is our body, and it's like literally like emotional machine that like you want to sit with it, you want to feel those emotions, and you want to identify when you get triggered or you feel a certain way, so that down the line you're able to make a bit better decisions. And you're in alignment with those decisions. And it's not just like I'm making this decision because I feel like it. It's like most of those decisions are not like the best for us. Because most of the day, like even now that I'm like training, I'm like, I don't like I want to like I stick to the diet. I have to stick to it for like 5 or so weeks that I have left. And I'm like, even now that we're talking about chips, I'm like, would be so nice. I'm like, I'm imagining how I would eat it, but I'm like, okay, I'm now in a place where I'm like, I have literally like the countdown until the day that I have to go and compete. It's not like I don't see it as a competition, but I have to learn to communicate it that way.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, if I cheat on my diet today, I will make it harder for myself on that day. And I know how hard it was when I was doing the half marathon the last time. I know how painful that is. And that's my reference. I'm like, if you make this decision right now, don't be surprised if it feels even harder or more painful in those 5-6 weeks. And every time I literally think about how I felt back then, and I'm like, you know what, it's not worth it. I can wait until I'm back. And probably by the time I will be back, I'm like, okay, let's go, let's continue. But it has helped me to make so many decisions. So like it's something that actually with learned helplessness, it also could help us to think about, well, first is to, it might be hard to do. Yeah, it might be hard to do to think about where you want to be, especially when you have pretty bad reference of where you are.
Yeah.
but just think about even like the next step or next place that would be nice to be at. And then from there, you can now start to think, there's a book, what was it? It was something like, okay, willpower, something. I wish I could remember it. Let me find it. Because like in that book, there was like one brilliant thing that the author was writing about. It was about the idea that when you make decision, you think about, let's say in my case, to, I don't know, cheat on my diet. Is this something that I rather do now, or if I don't make this decision now, I take care of my future self? So all decisions are made not based on how you feel and what you want right now, but what is beneficial for
The future.
yeah, even like tomorrow me. If I eat bad today, or if I do no workouts, no nothing today, I get super lazy, how will I feel tomorrow? Is it more likely I will actually want to do things tomorrow, or I will want to be lazy again? And when I think about tomorrow, because most of us, we might want to think we don't know ourselves, but we actually know ourselves quite well. So you
Yeah.
know that if you will do this, you know what will happen tomorrow. You know, you know
Yep.
what's coming.
You
So
can
that
pick
is
your pain, they say. Pick your pain. You can pick it
exactly.
now or you can pick it later. Choose your
Willpower
pain.
Instinct is the book.
Oh, okay.
It's a good book. So like that is something that, yeah, there's like so many small tools, but I think that the most important thing is to do something. It's like
Yes.
everything comes back
One
to do
little step.
something.
Do something. Do something different. Look
Yeah.
for something different. Okay, see this wall. What can I do different? I've sat here every time and stared at the wall, and that hasn't worked. The wall is still there. So what can I do different? That's
Yeah.
what literally what I would say to myself. You're sitting here staring at the wall again.
Yeah. What if I
So
turn the back to the,
right,
what happens then?
right.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Let's see. Is there like anything else? I feel like we covered so many things.
We covered a lot. I think we covered this really well.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing really is give yourself grace. Don't be hard on yourself, because when you're hard on yourself, you just add to that shame and you just push yourself in deeper. And really, there shouldn't be any shame in this. And I'm not saying that like being critical. I'm just saying there shouldn't be, because you shouldn't be carrying this shame. This is not okay. And you can get yourself out. You can unlearn this and live a full life. I'm an example. You're an example. And I know several people. It is taking baby steps. Don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed by it, because it is big. But you know what? It's a journey. We're on a journey.
Yeah.
We're on this journey until we take our last breath. And it does get easier as you start taking those steps, and you start convincing yourself, oh, it's not always like that. The motivation gets faster and it gets much easier to get out of this.
Yeah. And with that, don't focus on motivation, focus on discipline.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes we want to kind of, we want to hold on to feeling good because we want to feel good. But I can tell you like straight up, it doesn't feel good. Like on days when you have to do things that are beneficial for you, but you don't feel like doing them, it doesn't feel good, but it's necessary. It's a necessary step towards getting to where you want to get. And that's okay. And that's something that like I feel like it should be advertised a bit more how shitty it can feel at times, especially when you're literally trying
Normal.
to, yeah, it's normal. And if you feel bad, don't think that it's a bad thing. It's normal. It's part of the
Right.
process and it's okay. We all go through that. If you probably feel the same way, I feel like it's more than it should be, but it
Yeah,
is what it
sometimes it
is.
feels, yeah, it can feel overwhelming. It can feel really scary. But it's part of the process. It really is part of the process. Healing is not just an easy journey at all. It's hard. And I saw someone say, I started my healing journey. Has anybody else experienced that they seem to be more impatient? Yeah, you're going through a
It's
lot.
actually
You're
one of the
gonna
things that
be,
I wanted to mention is to be patient.
yeah, lots of patience. And the whole healing journey requires a lot of patience, a lot. Because it's not something, there can be times in your life where you have an aha moment and there's like this big spurt of healing or growth. That has happened to me, but not
I
very
love
often.
those moments.
I know. Those, yeah, they put you on a high, and it's just like you want
Woo.
to tell the world it's so
Yeah.
exciting. You want everybody to feel that, right?
And I think that's
But
when
that's
usually
not
people show
common.
up online, when they feel super amazing and everybody's like, oh yeah, let's go. And then you start and you're
Yeah.
like, it's not that fun.
It's not, yeah, it's not feeling like that. I'm not feeling it. But, for the most part, it's baby steps. But the thing is, and one more thing to do when you're on your healing journey, and I've said it before, is look back. Where were you? Like you've talked about it. I've talked about it. Where were you a year ago?
Journaling helps with that. Look back.
Totally. Writing down where you're at, no judgment, no criticism. It's just where you're at, especially in the healing journey, especially with childhood abuse and trauma. This was not your fault. This was placed upon you. Unfortunately, it's on us really to do the healing.
You know what's a good quote that I heard? It's not your fault, but it is your problem to solve.
Yes. And that's true. And instead of feeling helpless there, that should feel empowering, because that means you're the one in control of your healing journey and your growth. You are. Nobody else can tell you. People can tell you how you should live your life, but it's your choice, your decision, your life.
And
And
believe
you
it or
are in
not,
control.
you have that power. You might
Yes,
not
you
believe
do.
it, but you actually have that power.
And sometimes, and especially in the beginning of the healing journey, you're going to take a lot of steps that you're not going to believe at first. You're not going to believe. You don't have to wait to believe it before it's going to work. But if you take the steps, one day you'll see evidence, and then you'll believe.
Yep. Don't wait to feel confident. Don't wait to feel ready. Just start.
Just put your head down and do it. That's what I do. Just put your head down and just do it.
So powerful.
Come up for air
I
once in a
want
while.
to go and do stuff now.
I know, right? Okay, let's go. Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. Anything else you want to add? And also, like, anybody listening, please like, subscribe, support what we're doing.
Yeah, we want to share that. We want to share the love, and we want to shorten people's pain, so that's the purpose of my podcast, is to get this kind of stuff out there to help people so they can get out of their pain.
Yeah, one person at a time, one episode at a time. And that's how we slowly get to where we want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do 100 podcasts all at once. I've had to do them step by step.
Yep.
And I've improved step by step. And, my first podcast and my, they're not perfect, but, I had to keep doing them.
Exactly. All right. Yeah. Well.
Cool. I think we've
guess,
solved another world problem.
Yeah, another problem resolved.
Sweet.
We'll see what we'll come up with next time. Oh, and if you have any ideas, comment them, share them, reach out, message us, so that we have more stuff that we can talk about that you find valuable.
Yeah.
So I will see you next time.
Yeah, next time.